Once upon a time, in a faraway land, a woodcutter lived with his wife and his 2 children on the edge of a forest. The boy was called Hansel, and the girl Gretel. The family was very poor. One evening, the stepmother decided there wasn't enough food for all of them. "Tomorrow," she said, "we will take the children into the forest and abandon them. We shall be rid of them." The woodcutter loved his children dearly, but he obeyed his wife. However, Hansel overheard his father and stepmother talking. He crept outside in the night and collected as many white pebbles as he could, put them in his pocket, and went back to bed. At daybreak, the family went into the forest. "Stay here," said the stepmother, "while your father and I go fetch some wood. When we're done, we'll come back and get you." But they never came back. Night came, the full moon rose, and Gretel was afraid, but her brother showed her a path of white pebbles glistening like silver pennies, which he had carefully dropped on their walk into the forest. He took her hand, and they followed the path home. When they returned home, their father rushed to them gladly, but their stepmother did not. That night she locked them up and said, "Tomorrow we'll take them deeper into the forest so they can't find their way back." Hansel overheard her, but this time he couldn't do anything because he and his sister were locked up. The next morning, the family went back into the woods and walked for a long time. Hansel had brought a loaf of bread. He discreetly tore breadcrumbs and dropped them along the way. Once their father and stepmother left and did not return, Hansel and Gretel looked for their trail of breadcrumbs to follow back home. Alas! There were no breadcrumbs to be found. Birds had come and picked them all up. They were lost. They spent a terrible night alone in the woods. The next day, they came upon a marvelous little house with walls made of gingerbread, a roof made of cake, candy decorations, and windows of clear sugar. They were so hungry they broke off a little piece of the roof and marveled at how good it tasted. An old woman came out of the house and offered them supper and shelter. They were so hungry, and she seemed so nice, so they accepted her offer. But when they awoke the following day, Hansel found himself locked in a cage. The old woman was a mean witch.
"You shall clean and cook," she ordered Gretel, "and when your brother is plump enough, I'll have him for dinner."
Luckily, the witch had bad eyesight, so when she tried to pinch Hansel's finger to check if he was fat enough, he handed her an old chicken bone.
"You are still too skinny for supper," she would say.
After a month, the witch decided it was time and told Gretel to heat the oven.
"Creep in to make sure it's hot,"
she said. But Gretel knew the witch was trying to trick her and played the fool. "How do I know if it's hot enough?" she asked.
"You silly goose, I'll show you,"
said the old witch. As she bent down to peer into the oven, Gretel gave her a shove and pushed her right into the oven, closing the oven door behind her, leaving the witch to roast. Gretel ran to the cage to let her brother out. How they fell into each other's arms and rejoiced. Together they found a bag filled with gold, diamonds, and other precious jewels. It was time to go home. They took the bag of treasure with them and set out to try and find their way home. After a long day of walking, they managed to find their way back home. Upon seeing them, their father was overwhelmed with joy. Their stepmother had died soon after she and their father had left them in the woods, and their father had always regretted what he had done to them. "From now on, we will live together forever," he promised. Hansel and Gretel took out the precious stones and gold, and their father marveled at them. All their troubles were over, and they lived together happily ever after.